All right. Hello, invertebrate people. Here to finish up the last of our three themes. So we have looked at the idea of ecology. We've looked at the idea of evolution, and now lastly, taxonomy. So these three themes that support the rest of the material that we're going to cover throughout this semester. So ecology dealing with um, our different interactions, mutualisms, competitions, predation, parasitisms. Evolution then dealing with the changes over time. So the different mechanisms generated mutation, selection, gene flow, genetic drift. So you should be knowledgeable on those. And then now we have this third aspect, which deals with our taxonomy. So taxonomy basically is going to deal with all of life's biodiversity. So in all of this history of Earth, since the Cambrian era all the way onwards, we start to see a lot of life, invertebrate life, plant life, different fungal life, bacteria. All of these things start to really flourish. So um, to try to make sense of this, and it's been going on for a long time, but to try to make sense of this, we have to have some system, some method of naming and organizing all of life's different types of species, right? All of this biodiversity. So this idea, taxonomy, categorizing, classifying, this has been going on since the dawn of human age, right? So uh, think of that old prehistoric sort of human that figured out, man, if I eat this plant, it's delicious and it's nutritious. If I eat this different other type of plant, oh, I get really sick to my stomach. If I have a headache and I eat this plant, oh, it makes my headache go away. Or if I pick up this snake and it bites me, oh, I'll die. If I pick up this other snake, it's no problem, right? If I poke at this little insect, it's gonna sting. This other insect, no issue, right? So we've been developing this sort of history of knowledge, of understanding the differences between all of these different living things, right? All of this biodiversity. So this class is no different. So we focus now on the invertebrate sort of organisms, the category of invertebrates, and then within this broad category, we look at different types of invertebrates, taxonomical groups. Now, taxonomy has had an interesting history. So it started out in a confusing way, looking at just common names. Right? So common names. And just to give you some examples of why this would be a problematic and confusing strategy, I present to you the robin, right? In the United States, our robins look like this: orange belly, yellow beaks, little white outline around the eyes, right? And we can talk about the robin, or the robin flew in, the robin migrated, the robin eats these types of foods. And then if we go to Europe and we kind of think we know about robins and we start talking about robins over there, it's going to get confusing because their robin is a different species. It's a different bird, different size, different behavior, different diet, different songs. So that can start to lead to confusion, right? These common names. If we go to Australia and we start talking about bears, well, that's kind of, a little koala bear. Yeah, they're cuddly, whatever. Eh? If we go to Alaska and we start talking about bears, it's a different type of organism, right? So very, very different biologies, different niches, different threats. Potential harm can be caused by one, maybe not so much from the other. So these common name issues. And this is just in one language, in the English language. You can imagine now trying to deal with Spanish language and Portuguese language and different German language, French, Italian, all trying to name one type of organism. That organism ends up with a lot of different names very quickly. So to kind of resolve that, we have a pretty brilliant scientist by the name of Carl von Linné, 1700s. Yeah. So Carl von Linné was in charge of this big museum that would receive all these different species from around the world. And he got tired, fed up with all of this confusion and different languages. So he said, you know what, time out, guys. Let's start from scratch. we're going to start with a system that he called the binomial nomenclature system. It's a system of naming that has two parts. Two names comprise the species name of that organism, of that organism species. Right? So since there was so many different languages, he decided to try to standardize it as best as possible using the Latin language. A little bit of Greek language was used as well, but he tried to, to make it as logical and as easy as possible. Right? So, for example, people told him, "Well, this is an oak from this part of the world. No, this is an oak. No, this is an oak. No, this is an oak." And he said, "You know what? Well, time out. They're both oaks. They both produce acorns, right? But yes, the leaves are obviously very different, different texture, different sizes. So this an oak. It's an oak. So he gave it then the name Quercus, which is means oak in the Latin language, right? And then he gave it a different descriptive term, a different descriptive term. So for the entire species of willow oak, that's called Quercus phaeus, right? The entire species of red oak, he called that Quercus rubra. Right? And it's not just for that one tree. He didn't name that one tree. He named the entire species that binomial name, right? And to prove that he wasn't just messing around, he wasn't just kind of joking around, he legally had his name changed from Carl von Linné, a three-part name, to this two-part Latinized name, Carolus Linnaeus. So born Carl von Linné, legally died as Carolus Linnaeus, right? So he changed his name, and we still see a little bit of evidence of this two-part name system today. So you have a first name, you have a last name. You might have a middle name or a junior or some suffix at the end of your name, but that kind of can be traced back to this two-part naming system, right? Designed as a method to keep track of all of this biodiversity. Now, we have to go to the field of grammar, and there's some grammatical sort of rules that we have to kind of address. So if we're going to come up with a two-part naming system, it has to have some sort of logic behind it, right? So it's going to be two-part name comprised of what we call a genus name. This is a taxonomical level of organization. And then the even more specific taxonomical level of organization that we call the epithet. So this roughly translates to the noun and the adjective, right? So recall, Linnaeus wanted to base everything on Latin. And the phrasing of Latin is different than the phrasing of English. So in English, we might say the white dog. So white, the adjective, the descriptive term comes before the noun, the dog, right? White dog. Right? In Spanish, that's going to get flipped around. So the structure, sentence structure is different in Spanish and the root Latin language there, right? So the white dog, el perro blanco, the dog white. That's how it would be phrased in Spanish, right? Perro, dog, blanco, white. This binomial system is going to be like the Latin, the Spanish sort of aspect. So the noun will come first, and then the descriptive epithet will come sort of afterwards. So to kind of give you an example here, right, where we're going to have the genus name that is going to have a capital, the descriptive term is lowercase. We always try to italicize or underline these names. So here we have a fly, right, that loves nectar. It loves flower and fruit nectar. So the lover of basically fruit and it's a fly, right? So Drosophila, melanogaster, melano meaning black, gaster meaning like the posterior, like the butt area. So we have a little sort of nectar-loving fly with a black tail, black butt there, right? And that's how it gets the name, right? So the name will be capitalized, first name, genus name capitalized, epithet lowercase, and both of them will be underlined. Or if we can italicize, Here we have the name of the ladybug, two-part name, capital, lowercase, and then italicized here. So you're going to see a lot of these names throughout the semester, these species names, and understand we're not naming one fly. We're not naming one ladybug. We're describing the entire species of ladybug, the entire species of fruit fly, and kind of giving it these technical names, these binomial descriptions in Latin or Greek language there. So notice, this is just a reptile example, but all of these lizards have this little throat fan, colorful throat fan. So they're all lizards. They're all kind of related. They're all kind of like cousins. So they all have the first same, or the first genus name, the same first name, but then their epithet is different, epithet is different, epithet is different, epithet is different. So but because they have the first genus name, it lets you know that, oh, they're all kind of lizards. They all kind of do the same thing. Just like you and your cousins may have the same last name, but you're different, right? You have different first names, right? So that's sort of the idea here. So the species level, right? The most specific, and I'm going to actually describe what species means in a bit, but here we have a species of a dog, a wolf, right? So we're going to have different taxonomical categories like bowls. The bigger the bowl, the more things fit. The smaller the bowl, the less things fit and the more specific it gets. So here we begin with the overall kingdom. So it's an animal. So kingdom Animalia. It has a backbone. This is different than what we're going to cover this semester. This semester we cover invertebrates, non-backbone animals. This would be in a different phylum, right? This one is a phylum Chordata, has a backbone, has fur, so it's class Mammalia, eats meat, order Carnivora, is a type of carnivore that has the canine teeth, right? The front big teeth. So carnivore or Canidae has the canines, is in the genus Canis, and is that wolf, lupus, right? So that's the epithet. So this taxonomical hierarchy we're gonna see throughout the semester, right? So we're gonna deal with the big category of kingdom. So kingdom, everything we cover this semester will be an animal, kingdom Animalia. Our phyla are gonna be different, right? We're not gonna look at the chordates because we're gonna be looking at invertebrates. So we're gonna have different types of invertebrates. Those invertebrates will have different classes, different orders, different families, different genus, and different species. So kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. I want you to remember that sequence. There's a lot of little mnemonics you can come up with. A common one, Katy Perry comes over for grape soda. I didn't know Katy Perry liked grape soda, but apparently she came over for some grape soda, right? Kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. You can come up with your own mnemonics. I've heard all kinds of interesting ones, but just try to remember that taxonomical rank from the most inclusive to the most specific. So again, this one is upside down compared to this one, and there's no really right side up. It can be up, down, sideways. Just understand the different levels, how the levels relate to each other. So here we have one side to side. So the domain, Eukarya, kingdom Animalia. Here are chordates, class, order, family, genus, and species. So every living species can be arranged in its own taxonomical hierarchy here, from kingdom all the way down to species. And we're going to get practice with this throughout the semester. This is the same one now for the domestic dog. So kingdom, it's animal kingdom where there's some fish and insects. Chordates eliminates all of the invertebrates and then just gets more specific from there. So our taxonomical hierarchy. Now I've been mentioning the term species, and you probably have heard this term species. They discovered a new species, or a species went extinct. What is an actual species? We're going to go with an old definition, a definition that was developed in 1940 This definition is termed as the species concept, or I should say the biological species concept. Species are groups of interbreeding natural populations which are reproductively isolated from other such groups. And this is not the only species concept that's out there. There's a lot of more modern species definitions, and this definition doesn't work with species that reproduce asexually, like bacteria can just replicate by mitosis. So it's going to work in most cases for this semester. There's going to be some exceptions where this species concept, falls a little bit short, but it was a good first attempt in 1940 to develop this sort of ideology, right? A group of organisms that can reproduce and produce fertile offspring, right? So different species. Now, we know today that a horse can breed with a horse and produce fertile offspring. A donkey can reproduce with other donkeys, and produce fertile offspring. So the horse is its own species. The donkey is its own species. If these two get very lonely and the right music is playing or something, they can reproduce, and they produce something we call a mule. Now, a mule is a little bit odd because the mule is sterile. So the chromosomes don't match up properly. The reproductive parts don't develop properly. So the mule can't pass on his genetics to his genes to another offspring. So this then tells us that the horse and donkey were able to produce offspring, but the offspring was not fertile. So that separates them as two separate species. So fertile offspring must be produced by this definition. So these hybrids can occur artificially in zoos, in labs, in ranches, farms, whatever, or they can occur naturally out in nature sometimes. But if these two different species are able to produce a fertile offspring, then they're technically not two separate species. They're part of one same species, right? And that gets into some ideas of taxonomy and phylogenies and things like that. But I hope this is making sense at this point. I'm going to stop this video and then get into the last little idea of now our phylogenies, phylogenetic trees, and things like that.